Everything around us, from the massive oak trees outside your window to the invisible bacteria living on your skin, it's all built on the exact same foundation. Today, we're taking a fascinating micro to macro journey. We're going to strip life down to its absolute barest unit, the cell, and then build it all the way back up to the complex breathing creatures we see in the mirror. Let's get into it.
Here's the roadmap for today's explainer. First, the microscopic world. Second, inside the animal cell. Third, plant versus bacterial cells. Fourth, cells with special jobs. And finally, from cells to organisms.
All right, Section 1, the microscopic world, peering into the invisible. So cells are the fundamental building blocks of life, right? But since most of them are completely invisible to our naked eyes, we have to rely heavily on powerful technology to even know they exist. Your standard light microscope can magnify objects up to about 150 times. Pretty good. But to truly unlock the secrets of the cell, scientists use electron microscopes, which push that magnification up to an astonishing 200,000 times.
And that brings us to a really core challenge in biology: bridging the gap between a drawing on a piece of paper and the infinitesimally small reality. To accurately study cells, we need to know exactly how much bigger we're looking at them compared to their true size. That concept is what we call magnification.
The math here is actually beautifully simple. The magnification formula is just the image size divided by the actual size. For example, say you have a drawing of a root hair cell that's 4.5 centimeters long on your page, but its actual, real-world size is just 1.5 millimeters. You simply divide the image size by the actual size to find out exactly how much the microscope scaled it up. It's a super vital tool that lets scientists accurately map out this microscopic universe.
Moving on to Section 2, inside the animal cell, the biological factory. Seriously, you can think of the typical animal cell as this bustling, highly organized factory. When you look closely, it's not just some chaotic blob. It contains highly specific structural departments called organelles, and every single one of them has a vital, non-negotiable job. Let's rapidly break down these factory departments. First up, you have the cell membrane. This acts like a partially permeable security gate. It lets small molecules in, but absolutely keeps the big ones out. Then there's the cytoplasm, which is the actual factory floor. It's a jelly-like fluid made of 90% water where all the essential chemical reactions happen. Next, we've got the nucleus, the ultimate control center holding the cell's DNA and dictating cell division. And rounding out our factory, we have the mitochondria and the ribosomes.
So how does this factory actually get its power and build its products? Well, that's the mitochondria. They're often slipper-shaped or oval with a heavily folded inner membrane. They are literally the power plants of the cell, entirely responsible for releasing the energy that keeps everything running. Meanwhile, you have these tiny floating structures called ribosomes acting as the manufacturing lines. They're absolutely essential for synthesizing proteins, which go on to become vital things like enzymes and antibodies. Without these two organelles, the whole factory just shuts down.
Okay, Section 3, plant versus bacterial cells, different blueprints for life. Because, as you'll see, not all life uses the exact same factory layout we just talked about. Let's compare plants directly to those animal cells. Plant cells actually have 3 extra structures that animal cells completely lack. First, a rigid cell wall made of cellulose. This fully permeable wall maintains turgor pressure so the cell doesn't burst, which is what keeps the entire plant standing upright. Second, they have chloroplasts. These contain the green pigment chlorophyll to trap sunlight for photosynthesis. And third, they feature a massive central sap vacuole that stores dissolved sugars, mineral ions, and water just to keep the cell firm. Now let's see how this all changes when we bring bacteria into the mix. This table highlights some incredible differences. Unlike animal and plant cells, bacteria completely lack a membrane-bound nucleus. Instead, their genetic code is just a single chromosome of coiled circular DNA floating right there inside the cell. Also, their cell wall isn't made of cellulose like a plant's, but a substance called mumane. But here is the really fascinating part. Bacteria also possess one or more little extra genetic rings called plasmids. These plasmids carry bonus genetic information that grants the bacteria super survival traits, like antibiotic resistance. Scientists even use these plasmids today to genetically modify cells, which is pretty wild.
Section 4. Cells with special jobs. Form meets function. We've looked at the basic blueprints, but once cells in a multicellular organism finish dividing and growing, they specialize. And in biology, their unique physical shapes perfectly dictate the highly specific jobs they're going to do in the body.
It is honestly incredible to see how far a cell will go to be good at its job. Take the human red blood cell. It is totally specialized for transporting oxygen. To do this better, it has a biconcave disc shape to maximize its surface area. It has a super elastic membrane so it can squeeze through microscopic blood capillaries. But most remarkably, it actually sacrifices its own nucleus. By ditching its control center, it frees up maximum interior space to pack in hemoglobin molecules, which are the things that actually carry the oxygen.
We see an equally stark contrast in reproductive cells. The female egg cell is massive. It features abundant cytoplasm with a nutrient-rich yolk to provide a stationary energy base for a developing embryo. In complete contrast, the male sperm cell is built entirely for delivery. It has a nucleus head tipped with an acrosome, a specialized tip that secretes enzymes to literally digest the egg's outer membrane. And to get there, its midpiece is packed tightly with energy-releasing mitochondria to power its tail, to actively swim.
We see this extreme specialization everywhere. In plants, the root hair cell extends outward with a long finger-like projection directly into the soil, creating a massive surface area specifically to absorb water and minerals. Back in animals, the nerve cell, or neuron, stretches out into a long fiber to transmit electrical impulses across the body. To make sure those signals don't get lost and travel lightning fast, the fiber is wrapped in a fatty insulation called a myelin sheath. Form perfectly matches function.
Finally, Section 5. From cells to organisms, the grand zoom out. We've spent all our time under the microscopic lens today, but how do these tiny, specialized units we've explored adapt and group together to build visible, breathing life?
Well, it all comes down to the biological hierarchy. It starts with the cell. When groups of specialized cells with similar structures work together for a shared function, they form a tissue. When different tissues group together to perform a specific body function, they form an organ. When a group of organs with related functions work together, they create an organ system. And when you combine all those systems together, you get an independent, living organism.
Let's track that path concretely. In an animal, a single microscopic muscle cell joins others to form muscle tissue. That tissue combines with nerve and blood tissues to form a functioning organ, the heart. The heart works with blood vessels to create this circulatory system, which, alongside your nervous and respiratory systems, creates you, a human being. In a plant, a single palisade cell joins others to form mesophyll tissue. That tissue builds an organ, like a leaf. The leaf joins the stem and buds to make the shoot system, which ultimately results in a complex organism, like a fern.
Which brings us to an absolutely mind-boggling thought. Right now, inside of you, trillions of mindless, invisible cells, each one functioning like its own little factory, are perfectly coordinating, releasing energy, sending electrical impulses, and pumping oxygen. And they're doing all of this just to allow you to sit there, understand the information in this explainer, and be alive. So it really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Exactly how are trillions of microscopic building blocks managing to coordinate all of that inside your body right this very second?